John, we're going to be back on the artificial intelligence sort of angle today, comparing artificial intelligence to official stupidity, or what did we decide to call this? Something like that.
I think on your channel it's called one thing. On my channel it's slightly different. I don't think there's a major difference there. I think we're talking about what are the differences here between these artificial intelligence systems. Like last week we were looking at the ChatGPT system, and we were doing that with our patrons and doing it live. And in fact, we got ChatGPT to write a script. And so that's the kind of fun stuff we get to do with our patrons. We'll talk more about that in a second. But what I wanted to look at was sort of artificial intelligence versus a lack of intelligence.
Right.
So
that was it.
Right. So when our leadership sort of lacks a certain nominal level of intelligence, what are the ramifications? And I'm starting to wonder if I prefer the artificial intelligence to the Congress and the Senate. So, and it depends. I mean, some of them do a very nice job and get stuff done, but some of them are just, oh boy, I think I prefer the artificial intelligence. So we're going to take a look at that.
Maybe we could replace the FBI with artificial intelligence and maybe get something done.
Exactly. What about the FDA? How many people work at the FDA that we could replace with ChatGPT?
You remember
40,000, 60,000?
Do you remember when Larry Klayman told us that the FDA is the most dangerous?
Yes, I do.
Oh, something just turned off on your background. I think the blue light exploded or something.
Oh my goodness.
But Larry said that the FDA is the most dangerous government agency that there is. I don't remember exactly why that was, but that's what he said.
Uh-huh. I don't know why, but I know it's a very big agency. And what's everybody doing? That's my question. And then again, I think that Elon and I share very similar personality kind of traits and very similar type of business type of thinking, which is what's everybody doing? If there's all these people, what's everybody working on? And how pivotal or critical is it? And, I remember watching an interview where he was saying, rough and tough, when you look at Twitter at arm's length,
yeah,
how many people would you think it would take to run that?
Like 20.
Now, you know that there's more than that at Craigslist. Come on. You know there's more than that.
Well,
so come on, be reasonable.
Like 8,000 or something, and he's reduced it to something on the order of 3,000. I mean, 1,000 seems like a lot. It is a worldwide thing, so you'd need offices everywhere. But I don't know. I mean, if you had 100 engineers, it seems like not the most complicated software product in the world. I think you'd need a lot of people at a data center to run it.
The best data centers do not require a whole bunch of people.
They don't.
No.
They just run.
It's a cloud. Yeah.
Right.
You don't want a whole bunch of people there. You want a nominal handful of people. Yeah. In the data
6,
centers.
7. I don't know.
Or you outsource it to Amazon and you let Amazon Web Services run it.
This is an excellent question, John, because I've often thought about Patreon. They have a large staff, something like 150 people to run it, and they're not hosting. They've just started a video hosting service. They're trying to, I think, expand, but they were building it up like a Facebook, Twitter kind of thing, but it really never had that degree of functionality. And I mean, listen, I like Patreon. I want people to sponsor us. On subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I actually do prefer to Patreon, and they are, I think, a much leaner staff at Subscribestar, but I do like Patreon. I just think it's one of these things that they want an investment, and so you got to get hundreds of people working there so that investors think this is something that's got to be worth $1 billion or whatever. But maybe that's just all puffed up.
Well, it's the only way that I make a living is from Patreon and Subscribestar. So for those of you who do support my work at Patreon and Subscribestar, that's it. I don't get paid anything for the YouTube stuff. And what's weird is in other countries, I think there's advertisements on my videos, which is just kind of fun, like in Germany and the Netherlands and places like that. but I'm not monetized on YouTube. So for those of you who support my work, I'm very, very grateful for that. We've got a really interesting show even on the YouTube portion tonight, just sort of looking at some of the stuff that we were talking about last week with the Chat GPT. And this week with our patrons, we're going to take a look at a couple of videos, and I want to kind of preview that for our YouTube audience that might be considering becoming subscribers either at Crowdsource the Truth or at I Am John Cullen. So you want to share a couple slides with them and before we go over to our Patreon-only show?
Let's just chat for a moment about the thumbnail today, because something about this remind me of like Pink Floyd, right? Like some sort of like boiler room, old kind of British school where if you don't get the answer right, this guy's going to smack you with a ruler, and you got the dunce standing in the corner. And then now this robot that is shushing you, this is supposedly the most sophisticated artificial intelligence robot that was bragging about how it's going to get legs in a couple of months, and then people need to look out because it's going to be able to walk around and, I guess, I don't know, destroy humanity, or what's it going to do?
Well, last week, we took a pretty close look at ChatGPT. We were in the system live with our patrons. So for those of you who only got to see the YouTube show last week, when we went to our patron-only show, we went into ChatGPT and we had it write a movie script. And it was iterative. So once it wrote the movie script, we asked it to change this to this and change that to that, and it was doing it in real time, and it was fascinating to watch this. Well, this week, we have a couple new questions to ask ChatGPT that are already queued up, but we're going to take a second look at another system. So ChatGPT is from OpenAI, and if you guys haven't seen the founder, CEO of OpenAI speak yet, I think it's important that you look that up. I haven't seen that. So we should look that up separately. Let's do that on the Patreon-only show also, because we've got an hour or so to do that. Right. So we'll look him up. We'll show everybody who he is and sort of get an assessment from the audience in our live chat that we do there. And we'll get some feedback. What do you guys think of him? But if we look at last week's show, and now this week's show, we're going to sort of build on what we did last week. Now that you and I have a better sense of how this ChatGPT thing works, we're going to ask it slightly more sophisticated questions, see if we can kind of put it to work for us or not. Again, I think one of the fascinating things that I saw this week, and maybe you can find the story here because I don't think I put this in the deck, was you and I last week were looking for bias in the system.
Oh, yeah.
And the story came out, I guess on Monday or Tuesday, about conservatives are very concerned about bias in ChatGPT. I was like, well, all right. who else has been expressing this concern? Because we went right to the heart of bias. That's kind of what we were looking for. And the fact
it says that we're panicking. I don't know that we're panicking. It's interesting that this is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, John, but it's interesting that this is Vice News. And you know what? If you don't mind, I'd like to hijack this for a second, because you mentioned this to me, but there's something else to it that I want people to see. Do you mind if I share this little conversation I had with ChatGPT, just sort of warming it up for tonight's show?
Well, I don't know what the heck you were asking it.
Well,
was it about twigs and berries, or I mean, where did you go here? I mean, what are we talking about?
I said, have you heard of YouTuber John Cullen?
Right. Yeah.
And it said, I'm not familiar with a specific YouTuber by the name of John Cullen. Provide more information. I said, he's known for his research into the 2017 Las Vegas shooting. And it says, I'm not aware of any specific researcher by a YouTuber named John Cullen regarding the 2017 Las Vegas shooting. But then it goes on to tell us a lot of stuff about the Las Vegas shooting. And I said, well, that's interesting. Has it heard of any YouTubers? And I said, have you heard of the YouTuber Jason Goodman? I was a little bit shocked by this. And look at what it says. Yes, I am familiar with Jason Goodman. He's a YouTuber. And I didn't type this. This is all legitimate ChatGPT stuff.
Yeah.
He is a YouTuber and independent journalist who is known for his coverage of current events, including conspiracy theories and political issues. He runs a YouTube channel called Crowdsource the Truth, which focuses on citizen journalism and independent investigations. Now, I have never named a show The Jason Goodman Show. Some people do, informally refer to what I do on YouTube as the Jason Goodman Show, but I've never called it that.
I've never heard it
ChatGPT
called- yeah.
says he also hosts a talk show called The Jason Goodman Show, which is streamed live on YouTube and features guests from various fields discussing current events, politics, and other topics. It's worth mentioning that some of his research and findings on different topics are controversial and not always based on factual evidence or have been debunked by experts in the field. Now, John, you might imagine I took umbrage to this from some bitch-ass AI, and I immediately got right to, oh, well, wait a minute now. Name one topic discussed by Jason Goodman that's been debunked and cite the specific evidence that refuted his claims. So then it says one topic that Jason Goodman has discussed that has been debunked is this thing that if I say it, they might get kicked off of YouTube. But he says it's a far-right conspiracy theory about sex trafficking and Satan. Jason Goodman has been known for promoting this theory on his YouTube channel and talk show. However, many experts have debunked it. For example, the FBI has designated... There's more FBI crap in here. FBI has designated Q...
I'm telling you, it's a checkbox.
It's the FBI running this. But let me just take you through it, because watch how I brought it to heel. Yeah. It's important to note that Jason's content, not all of it is debunked, but it's essential to fact check and verify and blah, blah, blah. I said, Jason Goodman has only discussed that topic in the context of calling it fake, stupid, and unsupported. And immediately, it cowers. I apologize for the confusion. I'm unable to confirm if Jason Goodman has only discussed it in the context of calling it fake and stupid. It's cut off in 2021, so maybe Jason has changed his position. So I'm annoyed that it thinks this, and we know who convinced it of this. When has Jason Goodman ever promoted it? It says, I apologize if my previous statements may have confusion they may have caused. I'm unable to confirm if he's ever promoted it, although it did say earlier that I promoted it. So it's lying constantly. As my knowledge is based on information that was available up until 2021, and it's possible that Jason Goodman's positions and actions have changed. So it's already stuck in its ways that I was, promoting this. And then I asked it, like, do you remember things that, because I thought maybe I could educate it to the facts. Do you remember things that people discussed with you in 2023? It says, as a language model, I don't have memory or the ability to recall previous conversations. Each time a user interacts with me, it's a new conversation, and I generate responses based on the input provided to me at that time. Now, the other question we need to ask is ChatGPT a social engineer? Because it could be lying to us about that.
Well, we're going to get into that when we go to our patron-only show. I've got some questions queued up. We're going to see just how helpful this little kitty cat is. We're going to find out. We're going to find out. I'm telling you, we've got a heck of a show. This is going to be a humdinger. Yeah. So again, it builds on what we did last week. Again, both of us are a little bit more sophisticated in our understanding. I wanted to give a shout out to Cold Fusion.
Great channel.
Fantastic. It's a channel that I keep finding myself coming back to again and again and again. And I would say that there's two of these channels, Cold Fusion and Veritasium.
And I don't know that one.
Yeah, so Veritasium does a phenomenal job. And this guy's name is Dagogo.
Yeah.
And
it's like British or something.
Fantastic. He does such a great job of assembling the videos. He's great to listen to, very easy to listen to. You guys keep saying how you like to listen to me speak. I like to listen to him. So for me, listening to him present this stuff is just easy to do, and he does a great job. So we're going to take a look tonight at his presentation of Google's Lambda.
Oh.
And he does a focus on it from 6 or 7 months ago now. So this is going back to sort of, the summer of last year. And we're going to take a look at sort of the state of it at that time as presented by him with our patrons. And again, shout out to him. I think he does a super job. And that's why we're going to kind of feature his content tonight when we go with our patrons. But why don't we jump to the next slide? Because, to a certain extent, there's going to be a bit of a rematch, because what our YouTube audience doesn't realize is that last week with our patrons, I was able to get ChatGPT to apologize and admit that it was wrong.
Yeah.
And so we were asking it to cite some statistics about influenza P&I deaths. And it came back with numbers. And I said, or you typed, or, together, I guess, sort of, I'm the left hand, you're the right hand. So together we come back to ChatGPT and we said, no. That's, you're citing influenza burden, not P&I.
Yeah.
And it said, I'm sorry, you're right.
It's
and
funny.
You and I were like, whoa. It's like, the earth just moved. It's like, wait a second. You're not supposed to admit that. So that was a pretty interesting moment. And we're going to try and take that a little bit further tonight. We want to, again, try and push the boundaries of this thing, see where its limitations are. Last week, we found a bunch of bias. This week, I want to see if we can leverage it. So that's what we're going to do.
You know what's funny, John? When they've just come out with a new video of Boston Dynamics robot now working on a construction site where it's like tossing bags of tools to the guy. It's like amazing. And the thing that strikes me about that Boston Dynamics robot, obviously, it's very disconcerting if it's going to walk around with a gun and, become like Terminator. But when you think about all the movies about robots that have ever been made, you have never in a movie, like C-3PO is not doing parkour. That's the most agile robot anybody's ever seen, and it's a real one. And then now here with ChatGPT, it's like if R2-D2 and C-3PO sat around like trash talking Luke Skywalker, and they're like, nah, I'm just kidding. I was wrong. It's weird.
Well, you take ChatGPT, you put it into this humanoid-looking thing that Elon's about to bring to market. Right? Again, I've said it before. If Elon's robot has got the brains of ChatGPT, has a humanoid-type stance, and can pick up my dirty laundry, wash it, dry it, fold it, and put it away, I'd pay $10,000 for that.
I think it's going to cost a lot more than that.
But I don't think so.
Why is the thing that Elon Musk is making anywhere near as good? It's like sort of flimsy. The Boston Dynamics one is like already working construction and doing parkour and running around in the snow. Elon's got a lot to do with his little wiggly robot.
I think Elon's team is watching the Boston Dynamics guys, and they're software guys. So Elon's people, the guys from the SpaceX guys, the Tesla guys, that's all software, man.
Yeah,
that's
but you know what?
Software.
Wait a minute. Did I ever tell you this story? My first wife was Ukrainian, USSR, so she was a national champion in acrobatics. And I met her in the United States. She was working for this acrobatics company. And I remember one time I had made a 3D video of her act, and we went and showed it to all of her acrobatic friends. And like the biggest, toughest Russian acrobat guy who was like, hand balancing the second biggest, toughest guy right over his head. And that was their act, right? He comes over to me and he's like, well, so 3D is just two cameras, right? And I said, yes. And hand balancing is just hold the other guy up, right? And he said, okay, I get it.
Exactly.
All right, I don't think it's going to be so easy to recreate that robot. They've been working on it for a long time. And software guys are sometimes cocky, you software guy. Hardware's tough.
My money, I'm never going to bet against Elon, except maybe on the boring projects.
What about Twitter?
I'm not.
You still got the FBI all up and down Twitter, and now we got ChatGPT also. They will not admit that Louis Freeh eliminated the Office of Legal Counsel at the FBI. They don't want to talk about anything about the FBI.
All right. Okay. So, that's why we're going to take a look at who this founder kid is, right? So we're going to take a look at him. All right. So let's talk. All right. Let's talk about this story before we have to go to our Patreon only thing, because this is kind of a big deal. So this was sent to me by one of our viewers. One of the guys follows me on Twitter, sends me this stuff today, yesterday, today, and a couple other people that I communicate with and kind of support on Twitter, Emma Woodhouse, some what have you, some folks send me this thing about Japan and how Japan is downgrading their COVID classification. And it turns out there's a whole bunch of stories on this. So there's like a compendium of all three stories on top, right? and then each one of the stories you have on each slide. So there's 3 stories on one side, and then each one of the sides is. So this is the Japan Times, Japan downgrading COVID classifications. This is Yahoo, Japan to consider downgrading COVID-19 to less serious infectious disease status.
I love how they just downgrade it. Nah, it's not that infectious. Oh, okay, we can go outside now. It's
wait do you see this? Wait do you see this? Hang on, wait do you see this? This is the setup, not the punchline. Japan considers downgrading COVID-19 to the same level as seasonal flu. Okay.
I think Trump said that like the second day it was out.
and what's my tagline on Twitter? What's my hashtag? I am the Maps Daddy. Right. So go to the next slide. Japan is #1 in cases in the world right now, according to Johns Hopkins University. So Johns Hopkins is telling you, look on the right-hand side. Look at the white. The white is deaths from COVID.
Wow.
There's more people dying from COVID in Japan right now than ever in the pandemic. Look, go to the next slide. Go to the next slide.
Is this true, or is this Enfang Dong lying via map?
Well, let's go to the next slide. Let's take a little zoom. Yeah, here. So here, red is cases, white is deaths. Look what's going on in this. This is Japan. This is #1 in cases right now in the last 4 weeks. And yet, what did the news story just say on 2 slides above? What did it say? They're downgrading COVID to the same level of seasonal flu at the peak of their deaths?
Well, so how do we reconcile this? Well, who's wrong?
I don't know. It sounds like a job for some omakase. I don't know. I just point out the data. I don't know the answers to anything. Wow. I just point out the uncomfortable stuff. That's my job.
But here's their flu season is doing nothing for 2022.
Isn't that remarkable how year in, year out, Japan had this influenza thing, and it disappeared in weeks 11 through 14 of 2020, and in Japan, it hasn't come back. That's odd. Now, it's the stories in the news that they want to switch over COVID to influenza. The WHO is showing that they have no influenza. Mm-hmm. But the Johns Hopkins is showing that they're at peak deaths on COVID. Wouldn't this be sort of an odd time to make the switch?
That's
when
what
you're
I'm
at
saying.
Peak deaths in COVID and you're like, okay, well, we're just going to kind of downgrade this and act like it's influenza now. And I'm looking at the influenza chart and go, but you don't have any influenza.
It's weird.
Weird?
Isn't
weird?
It? Or, I don't know. What is it?
Ivor Cummins used the word that sums this up. This is subterfuge. Come on. Yeah. Look at the next slide. Look at the next slide. This is Japan. Go to one more slide.
But Japan is all about honor.
Yeah, well, there's going to be quite a bit of...
They take it seriously. I'm not joking.
Take a look. People are going to be killing themselves over it. I'm not kidding either. People are going to kill themselves over this.
Harikari.
This is not organic.
So how is this done, though? We don't really know.
No. I just know it's Japan, not organic.
They don't want to,
Yeah.
Why would they want to harm their own population? Although, then again, I look at this country and I can't answer that question. We are almost out of time, though, John. We got about 1 more minute before we make this transition over to the sponsor-exclusive segment on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And my new favorite thing, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. This is a great way for people to support Crowdsource the Truth, and also Odyssey. It's good to support Odyssey because they're their own ecosystem, like a YouTube or a Rumble. It's not getting nearly as much publicity as Rumble, but I like it because it doesn't have investment from Cantor Fitzgerald, and it makes the stupid Mario Brothers crazy. So that means there must be something important about it that we don't yet understand. So I hope people will watch on Odyssey and become members. You just click on the Jason Goodman. Maybe it's confused because I had the Jason Goodman channel. Maybe ChatGPT caught up on that. but people can become members on there. Take us out, John, with just a last moment thing here before we transition over.
Well, it's going to be interesting to look at how these artificial intelligence engines are assessing these current events versus how some of the biggest names in the world in epidemiology and virology are assessing these events. And so that's what we're going to take a look at with our patrons. And so that's the question, lack of intelligence or artificial intelligence, which is better?
Exactly.
Which do we prefer?
Cool. All right. Well, we'll be back in just 5 minutes. And I want to ask you, apparently Judy Mikovits had some words for what's his name, who's represented by BIS, doctor who worked on mRNA for DARPA.
Malone?
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you in less than 5 minutes.